In 21XX, Dr. Light's magnum opus, X, is discovered by Dr. Kane in the remains of Light's laboratory, alongside his final message to the world, warning of X's great potential. X, a revolutionary robotic being even 100 years after his creation, is the first ever robot to possess unlimited free will and the ability to evolve like a living thing. Kane studied and replicated X's design to the best of his ability, revolutionizing robots into a new species in and of itself. Reploids, a name derived from replicant android, due to their ability to mimic human behavior near perfectly. However, a multitude of issues arose from these new Reploids, leading some to go haywire. These malfunctioning Reploids, dubbed Mavericks, were too dangerous for humanity to deal with, and thus the peacekeeping organization known as Maverick Hunters was born, led by Sigma, the most advanced Reploid of them all. However, after a fateful encounter involving a red Maverick results in Sigma himself leading the Mavericks against humanity, X, whose advanced conscious thoughts reject fighting to pursue order peacefully, and the pacified Maverick Hunter turns zero, are forced into combat against Sigma and his mysterious Reploid corrupting viruses. After several battles with Sigma, X and Zero were joined by Axel, a prototype of a new generation of Reploids who possessed the ability to transform into other Reploids. To adapt to this situation, seemed to have an even greater level of consciousness than X. However, the reason for the creation and the mindset of these new Reploids are not as well-meaning as they seem. And so, as a result, this is how we come to the MegaMan X series. Hello, and welcome to Mega Monday. I'm your host today, Metaruler, and today we're going to be going through all the things to love about the MegaMan X series. As a result, we're going to be talking about a lot of different things. All these different pieces, including the plot, like we were kind of delving into before, as well as things such as the character design and the actual game mechanics. Now, I know that the lore is a big piece because I know some of us like to run the game very fast, which, great as it is, not exactly very good from a lore perspective, I suppose. Kind of hard to know what's going on when you're going just at ludicrous speed. And so now we're going to be talking a little bit about all of those things and more. I'll get my notes up real quick. Alrighty. So first of all, let's begin with MegaMan X1. I have brought the X collection to come and assist me with this description, actually. So we're going to go into primarily the museum and take a look at the gallery. Now, the music I'm playing in the background is actually, funny enough, from the X collection, but I'm going to go ahead and swap it over to something a little more appropriate. All right, so let's chat a bit about MegaMan X. Now, the cool thing about MegaMan X, first of all, is that, again, it's starting in the future of Classic. So Classic being, you know, the old style Mega Man and roll and fighting the evils of Dr. Wily, taking all the robot masters and using them against Mega Man. Mega Man X starts out with, again, X being kind of the prime creation of Dr. Light. Everything that Dr. Kane builds is built off of X's original design, so in a way, Dr. Light has created this new age of robots, of Reploids, by extension, of course. Dr. Kane is referenced a couple different times throughout the games, throughout the series, but I believe his origin actually was in Mega Man X, as originally the only doctors you saw in Classic were Dr. Light, Dr. Wily, and Dr. Cossack, who shows up in, I think it's 4 or 5. I hadn't reviewed that one. But you can see, even based off of the box art here, you've got your prime characters, X, Zero, and Sigma, alongside all of the different Mavericks that are fighting against you in X1. Now, the interesting thing from X1's plot perspective is that all of these Mavericks are following Sigma because he was the original commander. Sigma was created by Dr. Kane to be his greatest creation and to be able to lead the army, to be able to lead X and all of the rest of the Maverick Hunters to be able to get rid of it once and for all. The main issue that you run into is that Sigma is sent out to go deal with a very specific Maverick. This Maverick happening to be Zero, who at the time was activated and essentially was a Maverick in this case. Really need you to do this by a campfire? Honestly, I would. So when Zero was first activated, Zero, kind of winding back a little bit, is Dr. Wily's equivalent to X. So for those that don't know, X being created by Dr. Light and essentially locked away and opened up in the future, Zero was the counterpart. So Dr. Wily is essentially, still evil in a lot of sense. Created Zero and created what was known as the Maverick virus. So a virus that was designed to essentially counter likely whatever the programming was of Dr. Light. In fact, more than likely, Dr. Wily took a lot of inspiration of the design for Zero from X himself. So because of that, when he awakens, Zero is a Maverick already. He is designed to rebel against the forces of good, the forces of Dr. Light and X. Now, the interesting thing about that is that the tables flip a bit in the fight. There's a cutscene that shows as Sigma bashes in Zero's head cavity. That head cavity is what holds the prime essence, essentially, of the virus that Dr. Wily programmed within him. When that happens, not only does it essentially knock Zero out, but the virus now moves. It moves from Zero and now assimilates into Sigma. Therefore, fusing with his advanced circuitry, because again, this is Dr. Kane's greatest creation, to create the Sigma virus. And by extension, Sigma being its host. At this point, it's just Sigma that is a host of the Sigma virus, because all of the other Mavericks in the original game follow him because he's their leader. Mavericks such as Chill Penguin, Spark Mandrill, and Storm Eagle, and the rest of the cast follow Sigma because they were originally Maverick Hunters. But Sigma turns on them, and he essentially wants to now create a new generation for the Reploids themselves. All of the Reploids that team up with him find that he's inspiring in that way. He's a leader essentially to them, and well, why would I not trust him, right? He's my commander. It's not known by the other members of the team that Sigma's already beginning to succumb to this evil, this essential darkness that Wily has put into the world to be able to continue this. Had not for the Maverick virus that now turned the Sigma virus, well, we could see a very different end and different story throughout of MegaMan X, but exactly what we're talking about. So that covers pretty much the entire plot of the original X. Of course, small plot threads such as Vile's existence, Vile being one of the right-hand men of Sigma essentially, who sets out to fight you in the opening stage and then has a battle with Zero where Zero is actually decimated by Vile. Now, this is due to the fact that Zero sacrifices himself to defeat him, or at least defeat his mech suit, and then you gotta finish him off, which is why X is able to use the Zero Buster at the end of the game. So, music is very well timed because this is Zero's theme. The great part about how this game sets up, as we'll see in the future iterations, is that it already establishes a lot of things in the world and a lot of consistencies. One, the existence of Reploids and the existence of Mavericks. Two, the now turning of Sigma and X and Zero having to now face him, because since Zero no longer possesses the Maverick virus, he is now become essentially a force for good. So as a result, Dr. Kane repairs Zero, which is why he's able to join the good side. So just scrolling through here, of course, these are all the story bits, which we already just went over. Bile being this one, then of course the 8 bosses: Chill Penguin, Flame Mammoth, Armored Armadillo, Storm Eagle, Sting Chameleon, Boomer Kuwanger, Spark Mandrill, and Launch Octopus. Now, the things I want to go over with these guys is actually all of their character designs. So let's start off first of all with X. Now, clearly a departure a bit from the classic Mega Man design. At this point, my likely theory, and I think it's been confirmed across different sources, that Capcom wanted to go for kind of an older appeal for Mega Man. I mean, after all, the audience that grew up with Mega Man had gotten older at the time, so it was time to introduce a cool Mega Man. So in comes X. Now, this version of X you see here is with all of the armor parts donned, which does also kind of cross into a mechanical piece, which is that this is also a game where there's a lot more movement options than classic Mega Man, but we'll talk about that whenever we get more into the actual mechanics of it. So X's design overall, I think is solid. So again, he's an iteration on Mega Man, more of this Reploid design that they now take on. Now, to talk about Zero, I love the fact that in contrast to X, Zero has a lot more sharp edges. So you notice X has like some roundness in a lot of different spots. Even the shoulder plating is rounded. And now you look at Zero, right? So it has those different round pieces, has the buster, but two key things. One, his helmet comes to points. The only points you really see on X is kind of a little bit on the edges of the helmet and somewhat on the feet, but mostly, again, all rounded edges. The sharpness of the edges to kind of indicate a little more of the, I guess, intensity, right? So again, it was designed to be an evil robot originally, so it makes a lot of sense that he would be not only this, but would also have that red, that vibrant red color to oppose Dr. Light's blue design. That very Gundam looking indeed, which again is a cool design. That's, I feel, overall what they really wanted to go for with all of these things. Which brings us to Sigma. Now, Sigma is an interesting one because he is the main villain, but you'll notice as his prime design doesn't really have as many sharp edges to the armor itself as Zero's does. Now, some of the sharp edges actually come from the cloak, which is an addition after he's already succumbed to the virus. You see in the cutscene, he's actually fighting without the cloak. He's just him. He's how he fights you in the boss fight in phase 2. Breaks out the saber, is able to duel you essentially to the death. And Sigma is bigger than both of the other two. So again, he's, compared to X and Zero, he's much taller. So it adds a little bit of that intimidation factor, but it's mostly the fact that he's turned against now all of the Maverick Hunters and is trying to form his new world order, more or less, due to the virus. Then we get the Vile, right? And Vile, of course, is already loaded with this Gatling gun on the shoulder, which I think is a sick design, and is, again, one of the premier villains of the series. And I love the purple color on him too, so it's always lovely. Chill Penguin. Does love Chill Penguin. All of the Mavericks in this game, at least, are modeled after animals. In fact, a lot of them are. It's generally the animal name plus the actual something that goes with them. So like Chill Penguin does ice attacks. Flame Mammoth, this big monstrosity, does fiery attacks. This oil tanker. Armored Armadillo, just kind of a warrior, like this cool shielding on him. I actually think Armored Armadillo is also a really cool one. Just everything about him, he flies around the stage in this rolling form. Storm Eagle is a classic. A lot of people probably remember Storm Eagle's theme, but just this force, right? This force of wind. Sting Chameleon is an interesting one. He's got, again, the invisibility, shooting the different attacks, a little bit of an annoying boss to fight. Boomer Kuwanger is the only one where I wasn't really sure what he was, but it turns out he's actually modeled after a Kuwataga beetle. So still follows that theming, right? Still follows the just generally around animals type theme. And of course, we got Spark Mandrill. A lot of people like this big old dude based off of a Mandrill, of course. And funny enough, Spark Mandrill is kind of the gutsman of this series in the fact that a lot of things throughout the series, including things like Runga Bunga, the boss, is kind of modeled around how he looks. So for those that are classic fans, you'll know that a lot of Dr. Wily's obsession was to model things after Gutsman or Metools or both. Well, that essentially carries kind of in the form of Spark Mandrill. So not as prominent, I don't feel, but prominent enough, at least for the first few games. Of course, we got Launch Octopus. Octopus fires a bunch of missiles. He's one of my favorites. I think that it's neat. The cool thing about all of these boss designs, by the way, is that their weakness weapon will generally do something to greatly inhibit their combat power. For instance, Launch Octopus can get his arms chopped, or Spark Mandrill can be kind of knocked away. I know another key one is Sting Chameleon can lose his tail, I believe. Armored Armadillo can lose their armor if they're attacked by their weakness weapon, which introduces another cool factor to the whole weakness matchup, right? Because in the original Mega Man, you could go and fight them with just the Buster with the lemons, but it makes a lot more sense to fight them with the weakness weapon, and even more so in Mega Man X. But that takes us through pretty much all of X. X and Zero get to the end, and all X defeats Sigma, and we've done it. We've won. Except for the fact that, unfortunately, the virus within Sigma is much more powerful than anyone anticipated. It turns out Wily's design is very strong, as it were. And as a result, we now have to move to Mega Man X2. Now, Mega Man X2, so I pull up my notes here, is, well, and real quickly, let me touch on the mechanics of X1. In addition to all the different boss fight mechanics we talked about, it introduces the movement aspect. It introduces being able to jump off of walls, being able to dash. Those movement options will continue in these future iterations, as now X and Zero are faced off against, well, not quite Sigma originally, as X2 takes place 6 months later. So the opening scene being you and Green Biker Dude making your way into a base, unfortunately to Green Biker Dude's dismay, as he sadly perishes. Never forget Green Biker Dude. So now that X has defeated Sigma, he's kind of in charge. So as a result, he's going around and hunting down these Mavericks that seem to be on the rise once again. And those Mavericks all have some kind of chip that's bearing Sigma's mark. But how is that possible, right? Sigma's dead, or again, at least people thought he was at this point. So X is going to a factory, which is how we get to that opening scene. As Dr. Kane has pointed out, they want to go and destroy it. It seems to be producing these kind of Maverick chips. So when they take out the factory, they now see as a new uprising breaks out, and it's led by 8 of the SA class Mavericks. So once again, kind of good turned evil. It's similar to the first one, except as opposed to just being under the charismatic leader influence of Sigma, these ones are actually, oh, they're actually under the influence of the Sigma virus. So as we go forward, you'll see as this continues to propagate. So in addition to the 8 now turned Mavericks that you have to fight in X2, you also have to fight the 3 X Hunters, and point them out here. I have brought my graphicness. You got Surges, Agile, and Violent. Let's see. There we go. So now this up here, Agile, Violent, and then Surges is right here, the old man look character. Those 3, in addition to the 8 other Mavericks that you see, are the main enemies of the game. Now, the X Hunters have a little bit of a motivation beyond just wanting to defeat X. So they additionally want to rebuild Zero. Each of them has a piece of Zero, which is why in the game you are required to fight each of them to then regain those parts. The only thing they're missing is a control chip, which is held by Dr. Kane to be able to reactivate him. You have two choices in the game mechanically. You could either fight all three of them, get Zero back, and be able to then defeat the fake Zero that you find at the end of the game, or if you choose not to do that, then now you're gonna have to fight the fake Zero. So, a bit reminiscent of a much later game in the Zero series where Zero v Zero. So after you defeat all of those Mavericks and the X-Hunters, you make your way to this Arctic base, at which point you realize, well, somehow Sigma returned. Founded the mother computer, which is now spreading this Maverick virus across the internet, which is kind of funny because it means that kind of this primal internet existed still within the confines of the X series. So of course, if we're looking for prime internet, we have to fast forward all the way to MegaMan Battle Network. And well, if we end up, well, if y'all want me back again to explain that, I'm more than welcome to explain the Battle Network series because I absolutely love it. Though, to be honest, you can find me loving pretty much all of the different Mega Man series, and the only one that I can't speak to right now is Legends because I haven't gotten a chance to play it yet. So, hopefully one day. So, there we go. We defeat Sigma again, right? X at the end. I wonder what it's going to take to achieve true peace. Well, luckily, Sigma at this point has been pacified. Now, we don't have any graphics for it, but I would like to give a shout out to one of the games that's a bit of an offshoot from the main line, Mega Man Extreme. So this one falls between X2 and X3 in the timeline, and it also involves kind of having the mother computer as it's been hacked, and they defeat a couple of the Shadow Hunters, Zane and Gimel, I believe is how to say it. And then confronting the hacker. Basically, it almost feels like a side story, but it works, right? Because mostly at the end you realize, oh wow, oh no, Sigma was manipulating the guy to hack it. Oh gosh, who could believe it? Somehow Sigma returned again. Luckily, he was defeated once again in Mega Man Extreme, which gets us to the next mainline game, Mega Man X3. And before we go to X3, to talk about how X2 iterates a little bit on original X's design. I like the fact in X2 that you already kind of have the different levels of charge. I like the weapon designs of it. I will say that, and just go through the bosses real quick as a refresher. We have X and Zero, we have Sigma, and this new form. I love the fact that he's got the arm claws. It's a pretty cool fight, I think, overall. Not his most exciting, I will say. Got the designs for Dr. Kane, which I do also like. The 8 Mavericks being Wire Sponge. We're starting to get a little bit away from animals, starting to get into some plant life here. Morph Moth. Flame Stag. Love Flame Stag. Got cool fighting moves. I will admit, a lot of the Fire Mavericks are very fighting coded. So all of them have some sort of battle stance to them, right? You have Flame Stag. We'll talk about Magma Dragoon in an upcoming, in one of the upcoming games. All of them are designed around kind of this, fighting aesthetic. I mean, heck, Magma Dragoon actually uses the Hadouken and Shoryuken as part of his moveset. Luckily, you too can do the Shoryuken in Mega Man X2, just as you could do the Hadouken in Mega Man X1 from getting everything in the game. Magna Centipede. Now, I don't remember if Sting Chameleon's tail comes off for Magna Centipede, but I'm pretty sure now that I'm looking at it again, I think it's Magna Centipede that can get the tail ripped off. But once again, more interactions with the bosses with their weaknesses. Overdrive Ostrich, who, while being a goofy design, is really, really fun. I love the fact that he just kind of is supposed to run you down, just runs back and forth across the screen. Bubble Crab, who doesn't love Bubble Crab, right? Bubble Crab's stage itself, and Bubble Crab is referenced in some future iterations as well. And then Wheel Gator. Everybody also loves Wheel Gator. Funny enough, Wheel Gator's stage having some skips to be able to get through when you're doing the speed run. You have to hit a very precise, I think it's Nova Jump is what the term is called, where you essentially have to do some kind of charging shenanigans to be able to mid-air jump before you're actually able to. And it gets you to a spot you're not supposed to get to yet, which saves a lot of time. Funny enough, if Hex is here, I know he's run the game before, so he'd probably be able to explain it better in chat. We got Crystal Snail as well. Very funny enough, he reminds me a lot of a boss in X8. So when we get there, I will talk about that one. Then, of course, we've got the mystery characters, right? We've got the X Hunters. So I wonder if we actually have images for all three of them. Got a lot of X, of course. Zero, all the different bosses and their different stances. Okay, here we go. So this Surgis's design, I do enjoy, or not Surgis, this is Agile. Agile's design is cool. I definitely think he's the second coolest of them. Well, no, I actually think Agile's the coolest. Surgis is the second coolest. And then Violence is fine. It's cool. I was wondering, Hex, Wheel Gator's the one that's got the skip in it, right? For the speedrun where you got a Nova jump. Also, I'm pretty sure it's called Nova jumping. I actually like Surgis with the hat way more. And of course, like I said, the Claude Sigma, as well as some other enemies. All right, that brings us now to MegaMan X3, where again, we've fought Sigma so much already. So the question becomes, what are we going to do in this game? Are we going to fight Sigma again? Well, not quite. As X3, your main enemy is actually that fella right there, Dr. Doppler. As we introduce another scientist type for the games. So, Dr. Doppler has created a cure to the Sigma virus. Well, that's great, considering that it seems to not be able to be defeated just by fighting it, unfortunately. And so, as a result, he attracts a lot of Reploids who construct a utopia called Doppeltown. And the world, in theory, would have been at peace. Unfortunately, suddenly the town itself goes maverick. All the Reploids that were there, and Dr. Doppler seems to be behind it all. So, makes you wonder, right? Seems a lot like a Sigma situation, but now Doppler's at the helm. Well, as a result, Doppler deploys some of his strongest allies, known as Bit and Bite, which are a kind of small and large main antagonist type enemy. Additionally, to Bit and Bite, he also works to rebuild Vile as Vile Mark II as your other overarching villain. So, similar to how X2 had 3 overarching villains in the X Hunters, we also have these 3 overarching villains being Bit, Bite, and Vile Mark II. So, not so great in the grand scheme of things, but luckily, Zero and X are able to fight more or less at full strength and get through all of the different Mavericks and eventually get to Dr. Doppler. Well, as it turns out, and you'll never guess this, Dr. Doppler has been loyal to Sigma the whole time. And it turns out that he was actually trying to ensnare X to be able to utilize his body for essentially the revival of Sigma. The Doppler radar with your 7-day forecast, chance of Maverick outbreak, high of 72, exactly. So, Doppler ended up being a servant of Sigma, but luckily X is able to bring Doppler back to his senses as the Sigma virus has infected him. You'll see as Dr. Doppler has a lot of like mechanical kind of enhancements, connections, etc. And unfortunately through those, the Sigma virus was able to infect him. And at this point you start seeing humanity and Reploids kind of divert into 3 different sections. You have the full Reploids or Mavericks, but Reploid type folk. You have the humans, humanity over here, which I gotta admit, not a great time to be a human in the world of X. And you have kind of the midpoint, places where folks like Dr. Doppler are gonna lie, and that half man, half machine, sort of a cyborg angle. As we get further, we'll see more of these enhanced type Reploids and more kind of augmented humanity, which continues to make its way into future series as well. after convincing Doppler to come back from the Sigma virus, it turns out that Dr. Doppler's been working on another little secret. He's been working on a giant battle body for himself to be able to connect into and fight, because he can't really fight too much on his own. Well, unfortunate news. The giant battle body that he created, well, Sigma has made his way into that body and has taken it over. And so, as a result, you fight one of, in my opinion, the greatest pains in the butt bosses in this entire series, known as Kaiser Sigma. So to pull that up here, I'm gonna go ahead and just go grab Kaiser Sigma. I don't think, yeah, they have to have art for Kaiser, right? We'll talk about the boss as well. Here, by the way, is Bit and Bite. These two kind of having this interesting, like, holy combination type piece. This is their fused form, which I, for the life of me, can't remember the name of, but it's like an insanely fun name. They gotta have Kaiser Sigma, right? There he is, Kaiser Sigma. Him taking over the battle body. Here's the greatest mechanical pain in the butt about this specific boss. Utilize my board again. Unfortunately, the only place where this boss can take damage right over here, just his head, and that's it. Otherwise, good luck. Because unfortunately, the rest of Kaiser Sigma's body is invincible. So the nice thing about this game, from a mechanic sense, is that you actually do have access to the Z-Saber as X, which is pretty cool. When you have the Z-Saber, you are able to kind of slash and reach his head. Otherwise, you have to shoot very precise shots to be able to hit it, and I'm gonna be honest, I defeated it with the Z-Saber. I do not know how anybody does it without that. So if anybody runs that and you are forced to do so, I would be very curious to know how exactly that goes, because I feel like that would just be the biggest pain I could imagine. And for designs in this, of course, X keeping that very serious tone to him, serious design. Got Zero here. Dr. Doppler as well. And you can kind of see the mechanics on him from this picture. Like I said, the Bit and Bite, known as the Nightmare Police. They are able to provide security for Doppeltown, but again, turn against all of them whenever Dr. Doppel becomes possessed. As well as Vial Mark II. Now, the cool thing I like about Vial is I love his new colors. I love the little missile rack that's on the left shoulder. And I love the fact that he kept the gun on the right. So, as it turns out, he still does not like X by any sense of the word, and which is for nothing else than to defeat him. So, Dr. Kane. Now, here's our 8 bosses. Blast Hornet, which I really like, being able to throw around bombs as this, like, basically flying Hornet all around. Blizzard Buffalo, just another big guy. If y'all remember Frostman from MegaMan 8, it's very reminiscent of it. Just huge, icy dude. A little less Arnold as far as the voicing goes, but, you know, that's just how MegaMan 8 was. And I adore that game, for the same reason I adore MegaMan X4's voice acting. Got Gravity Beetle. So, as it turns out, by the way, Gravity Beetle related to Boomer Kuwanger, which that was part of how I figured out that Boomer Kuwanger was a Kuwatara Beetle, is because Gravity Beetle is related to him. So, you could see that it's a fellow Beetle Reploid. So, and he's seeking revenge for it. I'm gonna be honest, even if this dude wasn't Maverick, he probably would want to kill X for that. I'm gonna beat you. Yeah, I love Frostman. Oh, he's so fun. Toxic Seahorse. This one, a funky design. I don't know how I feel about it, but I can respect what they were going for with it. Volt Catfish, on the other hand, I adore. This was the first Maverick that I saw and I was like, oh my god, this guy is perfect. He's incredible. I also like his weapon. It throws out basically 3 triangulated electrical charges, which is really neat. This game, I believe, also the introduction of being able to Oh wait, no, I guess it was X1 that was able to. So in a lot of the X games, you're able to upcharge your weapons as well. Whereas in classic Mega Man, you generally were able to use one of the weapons, like say Metal Blade. You press a button, you press a direction, boom, Metal Blade. In this game, there is the basic version of each of your weapons, and the enhanced version you can get from charging it. So multiple different methods of attack, multiple different ways to do a lot of things in the game, just adding a lot of depth to the simplicity that was the original Mega Man games. Of course, we'll have to see with Dual Override when it comes out, what kind of fun things they add to that. I actually thought the double gear system in 11 was very fun, and I'm excited to see what 12's mechanics bring. Crushed Crawfish, just straight raw power, just a big slicing giant claws. Got Tunnel Rhino, this big drill, got this another big frame dude. A couple just, actually, I mean, I'm gonna be honest, this game might have some of the most plethora of big Mavericks, because you got Volt Catfish, you got Tunnel Rhino, you've got Gravity Beetle 2 away, but you got Blizzard Buffalo being one of the biggest of them. Got Neon Tiger. It's not a big one, but I really like his design. I will say, I do think it's almost just a cooler version of Slash Man from Mega Man 7. Like, I like the Neon Tiger, I like the Electride Claws. I like a lot of his different attacks. There's another Maverick that also is basically this, funny enough. And then there's Sigma, given the claw in this picture once again, but again, you mostly fight him as Kaiser Sigma in 3. And so, as a result, Sigma is once again defeated, and the world is once again saved. Until it's not. Now, again, we're going to go ahead and mention one of the Extreme games, which is Mega Man Extreme 2, which comes between Mega Man X4, or X3 and X4. So in that game, the coolest part about it is it's got references to two, well, actually 3 Reploids that we haven't met yet. Gareth, which is like a knight Reploid, super cool looking dude. Burkana is like a mage slash witch. I'm gonna be honest, by the way, I thought both these folks were in command mission for the longest time. And then Iris, who comes with you in Extreme 2. And other than X4 is the only other appearance we get of Iris in these games. So, with that out of the way, as it turns out, at the end of the Extreme 2, you're not going to believe this. Sigma led Burkana to this whole experiment. Oh my goodness. So they have to defeat Sigma again. This right now is pretty sure 5 for the Sigma kill counter so far, if you count the Extreme games. I know, Sigma's back. Not so great. Now, the funny thing is, unlike Dr. Wily, where we kind of just let him live, I mean, we defeat Sigma, and then he's just back. So that's to show, though, the power of the Sigma virus. By the time Sigma, Wolf Sigma, the wall form, is defeated in X1, it's already too late. The virus itself has essentially meshed with Sigma's persona, and now carries that on in the form of the Sigma virus. So, after we get rid of Sigma, kind of back it a little bit up to X3, X starts to worry that he and Zero might not always be allies, which is a bit of an odd take, in my opinion. As well, why would you suddenly think that, right? It just occurred to me, by the way, that I need to real quickly, let's see, I need to real quickly check something. I guess I can't really do it with that. This. Real quickly need to check something on the capture card. What the? Do I? Oh, okay. Well, maybe we're good then. Okay. Just making sure I have what I need. So, to go back to this, let's talk about X4. Oh, baby, X4. Let me tell you something. I think that still to this day, X4 has been one of my absolute favorites. So just love and adore it. And this one's for you especially, Johnny, as well. Yeah, let's Let's actually go into this one here. Old web spiders. All right, so with X4, right? At this point, hey, Sigma's kind of gone. And at this point, Dr. Kane begins to think to himself, okay, how is it that we're going to continue to protect the world? I mean, can we really rely on the Maverick Hunters forever? Kind of almost this sort of rogue organization. Well, no. Dr. Kane has an idea. So on January 1st in AD 21XX, Dr. Kane signs an order to form the Reploid military organization, Repliforce. The idea is that they're going to help the Maverick Hunters. Unfortunately, maybe not quite as consistent as them, as they seem to be reckless and unreliable. I'll fast forward about 6 months to June 1st of that same year, and the Repliforce soldiers are spotted in a Maverick attack on the flying city Sky Lagoon. This is actually what starts the game. So you said to start out the Sky Lagoon, X and Zero rush into the aid, but their good buddy Magma Dragoon talks about how the city is falling and they have no choice but to retreat. Well, they return to the crash site of Sky Lagoon, and Zero rescues Iris at this point. X and Zero at this point go to Colonel, and they try to convince him, as he's one of the highest ranking officers in the Repliforce, to disarm for questioning. Colonel refuses, and therefore all of Repliforce is branded Maverick. Now, is that fair? They're just kind of, operating on their own orders and not succumbing to X telling, or X and Zero telling Colonel to stand down. Is that worth them being branded all Mavericks? Well, who knows? I know we yapped a little bit about stage on it this past year about the lore of X4 and whether or not Repliforce truly would have counted in the same vein as, say, Sigma, or this existential threat that the Sigma virus possesses. Trying to convince is a nice way to say it. Yeah, they pretty much point blank threatened him. They're like, yeah, you're coming in. Colonel doesn't like it. Right. Now, this is also the first introduction of Colonel in the series, and he also ends up being a recurring character, but not in the X series. He has his time in this game, and shows up later. Now, and I mean, to be honest, he's one of my absolute favorite Battle Network net navis, so if we do talk about Battle Network, I will be yapping a lot about Colonel again. So, as Colonel basically gets the whole organization of Repliforce branded Maverick, well, what do? Well, as a result, the leader, General, announces a coup d'etat to move Repliforce into space. He wants to load them up on the final weapon. As a result, this starts one of many great wars in MegaMan lore overall, called the Great Repliforce War. X and Zero basically go to try and stop them. So they've got 8 Repliforce agents that are now operating against them. You can see General in the background of this picture, as well as Colonel and Iris, and you get to see X and Zero kind of taking center stage once again. Boredom Night continues with Battle Network. Absolutely. Again, if y'all are willing to have me back and you want to do a format like this, we'll do it. We'll talk about Battle Network. Absolutely. You can see in the background of this version the 8 Repliforce members that we end up fighting, and a very cool rendering of Zero. So we've got X, we've got Zero once again, we've got Double. So he's a new introduction to the series, and he's clumsy, kind of goofy, but he tries his best to help X. But it's in perspective, you were able to play one of 2 stories in this game, and I would recommend playing both because they're both really good. So you can play as X and your assistant is Double in this case, or you can play as Zero and your assistant is Iris. And so, Iris, Colonel's sister, as it turns out, funny that she kind of betrays Repliforce in her own right, but Zero did kind of save her, and she also kind of feels like her brother is maybe not doing great things. As you can see, has a little bit of love for Zero, but honestly, who doesn't? I mean, have you seen the guy? Like, I don't know. I'd fall in love with Zero. That's all I'm saying. Like, look at this guy. Especially X40. Oh, so nice. Johnny, Premier Zero hater, but that's okay. Johnny, I feel would be part of Reploforce, and I can respect him for that because I would probably do the same, to be honest. Because I love the Reploforce designs, especially, again, things like Colonel. Look at Colonel. Love the beam blade. Love just his whole aesthetic. They really actually translated this extremely well to Battle Network, in my opinion. And then General, ooh, the big guy. This is the biggest Reploid we've seen yet. Just this huge mechanical man. And he's the Grand Leader of Reploforce. And then we get into the boss designs. So we got Web Spider, and you'll notice that all of these guys actually have Reploforce hats in some way, shape, or form, or at least I think half of them do. But they've all got the Reploforce logo on their backs, which is a pretty cool piece of detail. Got Frost Walrus, another, again, big icy guy, just throws himself at you. So welcome back, Frostman, again. This is just big punchy ice guy. Got Split Mushroom, just a goofy boss. And additionally with that, again, if anyone's played MegaMan 8, this was around the same time that X4 was coming about, and the voice acting for both of them was fun, but I guess from what I gather from all different articles, lacked direction. So it's just kind of goofy and fun. And just the ways that all of them have, they all have like these great just vocal pieces. Split Mushroom with just these goofy little call outs. Magma Dragoon, maybe not as much goofy, but it's probably one of the most serious, as it turns out, is actually a traitor. So one of the only members that wasn't technically part of Repforce proper, he basically just tricked us and betrayed us, and then he hit himself in a volcano, as the game aptly explains. And when we go after him, he, again, has the power of the Hadouken Shoryuken. He is the most fighting game character of the Reploids we've fought so far. Jex Jingray, otherwise known as Sha, is a very fun boss to fight, mostly because he makes that noise, but also because he zips around and shoots off all these attacks. You can see his hat. It's right above his head. Got Cyber Peacock. Now, this one delves a little bit more into that kind of network tech, right? And I am a big enjoyer of that aesthetic, as being a big Battle Network and Star Force fan. I just love how Cyber Peacock's stage looks overall. It's very, very cool. Storm Owl. I actually think of Storm Owl a lot when I think of like premier Reploforce members, just because, again, his hat's very prominent, and he just seems like a very loyal guy. So he is, essentially a tactician, more or less, and also makes funny owl noises whenever you hit him with his weakness. Flash Beast. Remember I talked about how we have Frostman like 3 times? This is about the 3rd iteration of Slashman. This is just Neon Tiger as Slashman. Kind of, again, I do like Slash Beast. He runs around, he roars, he slams walls, he shoots out these curved blade attacks, which you get whenever you get the weapon. And those are the 8, maybe not Mavericks, but 7 Reploforce members and 1 Maverick. I think we can pretty much consider Magma Dragoon just went and betrayed us, which is not so good. So once we defeat them, we're able to gain access to the final weapon. But unfortunately, there's a small problem that stands in our way. We make it to space, and here's X's ultimate armor, by the way. Very cool design. We got Zero with the Z-Saber, definitely really coming into his aesthetic here with this game. And then we have Double, our good friend Double, and Iris, who unfortunately does not want Zero to go and kill all of Reploforce. Not so great. Main reason why she tries to stop me here, we kind of killed Colonel, which not so great. Turns out the power of love is not enough to defeat the power of her brother getting killed, so that's why she fights us. So we end up fighting Colonel and defeating him. Yeah, exactly. We end up unfortunately killing her too, which results in one of the saddest cutscenes in design. But first we got to talk about the other guy. Now you see this guy right here. This of course is an evil villain that's introduced late in the game. But it turns out this was Double the whole time. That's right. This is the evil form of Double, who, full disclosure team, I did not see the betrayal actually coming when I played. It's a shame I didn't clip it when I played through, but when Double has his cutscene and transforms from his, you know, fun kind of round, funny guy into, again, this very sharp, like, evil version, I sat there and was just dumbfounded. I'm like, what? Double betrayed me! No! Did not see it coming. And you don't think about the fact that, oh, he's named Double. Oh, I get it, because it's like double cross. Haha, funny. Did not occur to me in the slightest. To put this in perspective, I also did not see the twist for the last boss of Mega Man X command mission until the scene before you fight him. So that I get too invested, and now I'm invested, and now I'm just as surprised as X is when suddenly I'm betrayed by my allies. Not so good. Ooh, okay, we can't talk about that quite yet. When you fight Iris, by the way, you fight her as like this evil, like mechanized robot form. I actually wonder if that shows up here. Okay, these are both of the X ones. This is a really cool render of General as well as Repliforce. Shout out to Repliforce. Look at these guys. Look at this professional photography here. Oh, is Iris's battle form not in here? Dang it, Iris's battle form is sick. Maybe turns into like an evil spaceship, more or less. Oh, I guess not. Wait a second. You know what the funny thing is? I don't remember this character showing up, but based on the back designs, it actually looks like he was kind of modeled after Duo from Classic. Duo, of course, being another character that shows up later. Just not in this series. Now, to backtrack just a little bit, we gotta talk about the coolest form of the Sigma boss, which, by the way, as it turns out, wow, we defeat General, right? Well, it turns out, oh man, Sigma managed to make it into the final weapon. Not so great. Turns out Sigma manipulated Repliforce and the Maverick Hunters from the very start. I know. Now, admittedly, I didn't see the double twist coming. But I think I saw this one pretty clear, that Sigma, as it turns out, was still behind it all. So this is indeed cool as hell Sigma. And to delve into the mechanics, it is, in my opinion, of all 8 games, the best Sigma fight, and in my opinion, the best final boss in the series. Includes all of X5 through 8, and we'll talk about those too, but oh my goodness. So, put in perspective, it's a 3-phase boss fight. You first off fight against this Reaper Sigma. Yeah, he shows up in this kind of like Reaper of Death form first. He goes around and swings the scythe at you and says fun voice liners like oh god, I can't remember what his phase 1 ones are. I mostly remember, are you ready for round 2? Whenever he transforms into his round 2 one. But just a great fight. It feels like he's taunting you the entire fight. And it's great. So first off, you fight him in his Reaper form. You essentially fight him down. The cloak falls off. And he turns now into, basically takes the cloak off. And is now kind of a form reminiscent of his X2 battle. In a way. Except for this time, he still has decided a little bit. It has some claw attacks. Has like some bar attacks. Throws out. Has a boomerang attack you can throw off his shoulders. That's a bit hard to dodge sometimes. Has lasers he can shoot out of his eyes. Oh, it's a scary form of Sigma. This is basically, again, Sigma Perfecto. This is the coolest version of Sigma going through all 3. And then in the 3rd phase, you've defeated him off the 2nd phase, but it turns out he's already fused with the final weapon. So you have to fight him in 2 different forms in the same phase. He has a big sniper laser form where he basically tries to shoot a laser cannon at you a few different times. And he has this kind of floor Sigma form where he tries to absorb you and then shoots out projectiles. You have to defeat both. And they both have different weaknesses. And it's just a really tense fight because, again, you've already gone through 2 phases of the fight. And there are spikes in this fight that he summons up. Don't touch them, as you already know. Spikes are really bad in the Mega Man games. And therefore, when you actually, and I gotta pull up this music because all the music for the boss fight is so good too. Let's see, why don't. Sigma. There we go. Got the Reaper Sigma form here. But yes, oh my goodness, I could talk about this fight all day because legitimately, it's just the best Mega Man X final boss. And the coolest parts, you get to do it twice. You get to do it as X and as Zero, which is so good. So again, I highly recommend if you're gonna play X4, which I do think you should. Again, I think you should play every X game we're gonna be talking about today. You should definitely play both routes. 100% worth it. Because unlike X, who gains weapons from each of the different forms, a la Mega Man, where he's able to absorb the power, Zero learns different martial maneuvers. So he's able to learn things like Rakoha, the big old blast attacks, or all the different, like the spinning pizza cutter attack, and all the other different slashes that he has, which carry over into future games, including the Zero series. Very iconic classic ones that really start making a mark here in X4. And so with that now, we actually are gonna have to change games. Because of course this game only has the first 4, and I love the box art for this game. Oh, you just look at all 4 of the games now that we've talked about them, you can now see all the different ones kind of going around in a circle. X1 on the top, X2 on the left, X3 on the bottom, and X4 on the right. But now we got to move on to X Collection 2, which I believe I have downloaded, but let's go find out. Otherwise, we're going to have to just chill here and yap a little bit. All right, great news. We don't have to wait for the download. That, by the way, was what I was trying to check earlier to make sure we had it. So now we talked a lot about X4, and Johnny, hopefully you understand a lot more of the lore now, especially. Again, I think X4's lore, super solid. Also, let's see, the end, and Area for round 2, and insert Sigma line here. I think that X4 overall as a game is probably it's probably my number 1, just because I love the designs, I love the story stuff. Do you want me to explain on stage? Oh, that's fine. Tell you what, this next year we'll get a bit with you and I together. Yeah, we'll talk more about X4 lore. So yes, I love X4's lore. But now we have to start moving on to the games that people don't like as much. And this is going to make this especially fun, because I know that folks love X1, X2, X3, X4, but X5 I think has a solid story in its own right. Now, I will also say that X4 is pretty much peak of the sound font that they were using at the time. So now we're going to move to X5's sound font, which is a little different, as you can already tell from the instrumentation. It goes for not only different instruments, but it has almost a like doomed sense about it, right? There's a reason for this. As we get into X5, we've defeated Repel Force, which, for better or worse, changes a lot of things. So let's talk about 5. As you can see from the cover art, we've got X and we've got 0, and well, we've got a new character here. In fact, a few new characters, but one of them sticks around. Oh, also that guy in the bottom right too. We'll talk about him as well. So X5, the story for this is that, well, once we've defeated Repel Force, the Maverick Hunters have experienced a lot of employee turnover from that war. Now, as a result, it means that a lot of the leadership has changed. So now, Repel Force, well, not Repel Force, but the Maverick Hunters, as Repel Force is gone, is under the command of a man named Cygnus. You can see him back there. He's one of the Reploids. Has a very similar design to Colonel, funny enough. A lot of good art there, too. Take a look. Very Colonel inspired, right? So just doesn't really, it doesn't have the cloak, doesn't have the blade, but very much still designed to be kind of that regal. Would have fit right in, honestly, with the Repliforce designs. Additionally, we also have Aelia. The introduction of Aelia in X5, which I know not everybody is necessarily a fan of the Navigators, but I think it's cool that Aelia gets this kind of start here. And well, it's one of the first lady Reploid main characters that we get. The world undergoes these repairs and damages from the Repliforce War, and they create some other things, including a space colony. Space colony is known as Eurasia. Now, meanwhile, as it turns out, I know this will come as a shock, Sigma's not dead. He's still here. But weird things are beginning to happen. The Sigma virus is continuing to iterate, continuing to grow, and become more powerful, almost like its original form. In X5, we get a lot of really cool lore, including Sigma getting to essentially interact with Dr. Wily, being able to meet Dr. Wily again 100+ years after the man is gone, and learning through the Sigma virus that Zero's original evil nature could be awoken with a powerful virus. Well, as it turns out, the Sigma virus is kind of a means to an end on that, but unfortunately not quite what is needed. After all, it's meshed and combined with Sigma to become something of its own. So as a result, Sigma wants nothing more than to get Zero back and be able to utilize him in combination with his own power to be able to take over the world. At this point, Sigma is becoming more and more desperate over the course of the series, and it's kind of cool to see his descent into madness. At this point, after X4, in my opinion, Sigma's lost kind of some of his last pieces of sanity, and he wants now nothing more than to destroy X. And now wants to take Zero to do it. So he hires a man known as Dynamo. This guy right here, and one of my favorite overall Reploid designs. Oh, Dynamo. I guess that's true. Cygnus doesn't have a rank as his name, so it wouldn't have fit quite as well. But there's other Repforce members, Storm Owl, and all these other ones, or not Storm, not a Storm Owl, and all the other Repliforce members. He could have just gone with them. But Dynamo, he's a mercenary. He does have enough skills to pay the bills. He's able to fight X and Zero. And he, along with Gate from X6, is introduced for a game, and then just kind of does stuff. Now, admittedly, funny enough, Dynamo somehow wasn't only a one-game wonder, as we'll discuss in the next one. When Sigma hires Dynamo, he hires him to go and plant a virus known as the Colony Virus in Eurasia. Which, shout out Shining Pegasus, by the way. This stage theme rocks, and it's on my actual liked list playlist. Like, I've thrown this onto my liked song list. Then, after placing that Colony Virus, he attacks a city, which essentially baits X and Zero into a fight that results in Sigma exploding into the Sigma virus. Again, he's lost a lot of sanity and honestly doesn't really have a true form at this point. So you see at the beginning of X5 that you fight the big Sigma head, as the Sigma virus essentially taken over a lot of the technologies in this city. Now, the other cool thing mechanically about X5 is it does actually matter what character you pick. You either will start with a stronger buster for X, or you'll start with even having access to the Zero buster if you start with Zero. Personal opinion, I honestly think you should just start with X. I almost never use the Zero buster, so I would just rather have the buster power on X. But that's also because I just adore Zero for what he is. He's a hack and slasher. He needs to get kind of, mid-range to close range generally to do damage. It's great. As a result of them defeating the Sigma virus that's now taken over that kind of machinery head, the virus spreads across the entire globe. The first step essentially of Sigma's plan. Oh, if he can't run the world, essentially, he might as well corrupt it all. Again, sanity lost, and now that he's interacted with Dr. Wily himself, essentially the epitome of evil by the end of his life, he's now formulated this, and Sigma's essentially being driven by the will of Dr. Wily. His presence just continuing throughout this series. Once the virus spreads across the globe, it not only causes chaos, but Dynamo also plays this card and sets Eurasia on a collision course with Earth. These two things combined are dubbed as the Earth Crisis, the main backdrop for X5. It's essentially a race against time to try and prevent the planet from getting decimated. Dynamo's giving Splash Woman vibes with X series. You know what? Yeah, and Dynamo would be that kind of guy. He's, that kind of fantastic kind of dude. So with the Earth Crisis, Maverick Hunters have two plans to be able to prevent this from happening. Because let me tell you, a space station crashing into the planet is not a good thing. And somehow is not going to be the last time this is a problem. Luckily, the only time in the X series. So as a result of these two plans, they either are going to need to fire the Enigma cannon to be able to stop Eurasia from falling, and they're going to need to build a space shuttle. Now, both these things are going to require some pieces to put together. Now, you can just fire the cannon. It's not a good idea in general, because unless you're manipulating it, aka what the speedrun does, there is a % chance that the cannon doesn't work. And similar to the Battle Network 4 laser, it can fire exactly once. So if it doesn't work, goodbye Earth, see you later. So you generally want to make sure it works. You can guarantee it does by, of course, going through and getting all the cannon pieces. Give me a source of that. Hey, this is the source right here. You get another source here. So now X and Zero travel across the globe to retrieve the parts, and they face 8 virus-infected Mavericks. So this is the first one where the Sigma virus has kind of taken direct control ever since X2. X2, they were kind of designed chips to make them go haywire and go Maverick, but they still had that kind of obedience, right? It was a flip over. This one, the virus has taken full form. And again, it's taken over the planet. So as a result, and by the way, Douglas, as I almost missed, is a mechanic who pretty much only shows up in this game. So Cygnus is at least fairly relevant. Douglas, not really as much. But X5 introduces the first concept that proliferates in future games, which is of upgrades, power-ups, etc. that you can get for your characters. So that is part of his prime existence. X, of course, looking super cool. Zero looking cool as well. These probably are the renders that you will see of X and Zero at any given piece, and I love what they've done with the Zero's character, because you'll notice that they do the shadow and they do the light from behind and the shadow up front. This is a great technique to show things like evil and darkness and like some sinister energy, and despite the fact that Zero is a good man. Well, he's a good Reploid. He wants to fight for justice. Unlike X, he's not afraid to kill some folks to do it, as you can see from that. Unlike X, he never hesitates to carry out his duty in a cool professional manner. You're beginning to see the dynamic between X and Zero. Both of them fight for justice, fight for good, fight for humanity and the good of Reploids. But X wants to solve things through peaceful means. After all, he relies on his core programming from Dr. Light. Well, there's no need for fighting, hopefully, and should be as a last resort. Zero still relies on the prime programming from Dr. Wily. Fighting is the way. And if I can cut my opponent in half to stop him from doing the things, then cut in half he shall be. And we will continue to see that divergence as the games go on. And kind of funny enough, is self-fulfilling to what X had wondered, which was, hey, will we still be friends? Well, maybe. Certainly with different ideals, though. Rip Earth is right. Again, I'm telling you, if you're a human living in the Mega Man X world, it continues to only get worse. And on a side note, I've always tried to think of what pop culture future that will drive most towards in the real world. Mega Man X is a non-zero chance, in my opinion. After all, things like AI, etc. Possible that you could eventually have living thinking Reploids, essentially, that'd be built out of this. Again, fate of humans, not so great, as all of this stuff essentially is happening while humans are panicking while the virus is spread and there's a space colony coming for them. It's not great. Lifesaver is, I believe he is relevant specifically in some Zero cutscenes. Which reminds me, we skipped over all of that stuff in the front, so let's go look at this real quick. The cool thing about X5 is that it actually references all the games from before. So, okay, here we go. We got X versus Sigma, and of course his loyal pup. We got Zero versus Vile. They blow them up also in the same game. We got X versus the Maverick Hunters here, or the X Hunters. My apologies. We've got the face-off against the fake Zero and Sigma. We got the real Zero up there front and center. We've got X versus Vile once again. We have a fight of the Bit and Bite versus Zero and X. And then we get into X4 where we're fighting double. He's using his signature Evil Slash. Got Zero versus Colonel, which I do love aesthetically. It's so good dueling blades. And again, now we get to here. We get to X5. So let's talk about the now corrupted Reploids that are facing us with this virus inside of them. Crescent Grizzly, a big scary bear with a big claw. Volt Kraken. This just again it's a cool Kraken design. It was once a Maverick Hunter. Shining Firefly. Yeah, another like smaller bug type guy. It was pretty cool. Tidal Whale, otherwise known as Duff McWhalen, if you're a cool dude. So, and to point out that reference, all of these characters had different names before, and when they got localized, essentially had to have the copyright stripped out of them. So, Spiral Pegasus, I said Shining Pegasus, but technically Shining was from before. Spike Rose Red, aka again a direct Axl Rose reference. Dark Necrobat, and Burn Dino Rex. All 8 of these characters are, in my opinion, really good designs. I actually think these, as far as a Maverick set, might be my favorite. I do love X4 and I love Rebel Force. I love the way they're designed, but I think just overall, Maverick design overall goes, I think X5 takes the cake. It's one of many reasons I like it. I also really love the intro to the stage design. I actually made a mock version myself that I utilize as my channel video. So if you do end up going to my channel, twitch.tv/Metaruler, and check that out, and that's the opener for it. That's like, it's again, it's a mock-up of how the X5 intro goes, because I think it's great. And so they defeat all 8 of these now corrupted Mavericks. The game has some different mechanics where, again, you have to get a certain amount of, I think X5s were to introduce a certain amount of score to be able to get certain pieces in the game. I'm not a huge fan of that, to be honest. So that particular piece of mechanics, maybe not something to love as much. But I think overall, the game itself and just the way that all the stages handle and the way the combat, the movement handles is still an absolute treat. And again, the Maverick design is oh so good. So, the Maverick Hunters end up being able to destroy Eurasia by collecting all these cannon parts from the virus enhanced Reploids. But unfortunately, the planet is still damaged by debris. Turns out we blew up the space station and then all the stuff falls to Earth. So the planet's still having a bad time. What's worse is the colony virus now mixes with the power of the Sigma virus that has taken over the world. and fuses into what's known as the super powerful Zero virus. Now, you would think the original virus from Zero was the Zero virus, but this is like basically a reforming of it. This is the ultimate fusion super duper virus form. And then it creates a cyberspace void known as Zero Space, which, funny enough, based on cyberspace stuff in the Zero series, it's kind of funny that it originates from the Zero virus. X and Zero enter this Zero Space and are brought to blows with each other. They have to fight each other over their ideals, and they eventually end up focusing on defeating Sigma instead. Again, Sigma's the last boss. I will say X versus Zero is a fun fight, but they end up solving it out. It is indeed the super duper HD remix Ultra virus. Now, the coolest part about Zero Space, let me tell you, the coolest part is that it essentially is a manifestation of Dr. Wily's conscience. The reason you can tell is because not only is this entire area, it's got like kind of the Zero, it's got like it's got W's and whatnot, it's got all of the essence essentially of Dr. Wily's will that he programmed into Zero's original virus that has now come to fruition, has come to form here. But the mini boss you fight, and let's see if they've got an image of this bad boy. Where's my boy? Got all the bosses. Let's see. Ooh, I don't know if they show it here. We will pull up the version of Sigma though, because it is kind of here he is, the Shadow Devil. Now, you might notice it's just a little bit inspired by, of course, one of Dr. Wily's original creations, the Yellow Devil. This one essentially manifests due to the Zero virus and is now this really interesting, powerful form of it. And the fight itself, oh, it's so fun. Just the way he bounces around the stage and just, you know, reforms himself just like the Yellow Devil does with enhanced combat capabilities. And with all the extra movement options of Mega Man X, it only makes sense that you would have to now use those movement options to survive. The Shadow Devil, ooh, one of the coolest, like, not final boss fights in the series. And of course, we've got our old friend once again. Not quite, aka not quite Runga Bunga, but, you know, a manifestation of him via, again, the Zero virus. A good mugshot of Dynamo. Once we get through that, we defeat the Shadow Devil, and we're able to get through Zero Space. We are now faced with Psycho Sigma, the X5 version. I gotta admit, Psycho Sigma's pretty cool, but again, has definitely gone insane. He took a page out of M. Bison's book and decided he's just gonna start using psychic powers and all of this different darkness. Psycho Sigma would fit right in with Shadow Lu super easily. So yes, this design, again, I think is cool with the cloak. This also is, I believe, Gaia armor is what shows up in this game. Invincible to spikes, very cool. Generally very, very hardy. Will die to lasers. So you could try to take this into the Zero virus area. I don't think it's a good idea, because there's an entire laser dodge section beforehand that's super difficult to do with this armor on. But if you so choose, then so be it. But Psycho Sigma, ooh, he's such a interesting fight, because again, he throws all these like psychic blades essentially that you have to continue to dodge and shoot at him. And if you look at this is kind of without the cloak, this is with the cloak. Ooh, just the kind of projected cloak, and very stoic in this one. So after defeating Psycho Sigma, ooh, funny enough, that psychic power reminiscent of his X1 cape, and the same one, he kind of keeps in X1, X2. We destroy Sigma, or so we think. He's left as only a head, which the virus essentially culminates and fires one final shot. So, as a result, Sigma is able to blow himself up to now be able to destroy Zero. He wounds X, but kills Zero in the process. Zero kind of dying tragically in this fight. Luckily, even though X is gravely wounded, Dr. Light's hologram appears to repair him so he can return to the Maverick Hunters. And unfortunately, with Zero dead, he leaves his saber behind. And X carries that Z saber with him into the next fight, which brings us X6, which you can even see in the cover art. There he is, Z saber in the hand. And X6 is going to be a fun venue because it's going to be the venue where we're going to get a lot of Alia lore, funny enough. So X6, the game starts out and, well, 3 weeks after all of this crisis and the things hit the earth and the Zero virus opened up this big old portal to Zero space, and humanity is having a really, really bad time. Again, it just keeps getting worse. Gate, a new character introduced for this game, explores the Eurasia crash site and finds a fragment of Zero's body. Once he analyzes it, unfortunately, Gate himself is driven mad by this virus, the Zero virus, as it's now infected these things, which fuels a grand dream that Gate has had, one of only advanced Reploids. Again, you might notice, does not include humans. It's bad to be a human in the Mega Man X world. As a result, he teams up with a few unique and rather strong individuals here. So, we see the return of Cygnus and Alia. Douglas is back. Gate teams up with High Max. He is a very strong creation. Reminds me a lot of Duo, despite not being Duo. Kind of this arbiter, this judge type Reploid, which High Max is one of my favorite designs in the X series. Just so cool. And he pulls out this ball, just throws him at you. The death ball attack is so good. And again, another fun voice acting piece. Beyond High Max, got Isak, which is said to be the essentially Reploided version of Dr. Wily. Some folks have theorized, and I think not sure if it's been fully proven, that essentially Isak is what Dr. Wily did to essentially keep himself around. The questions, of course, become, what was he doing before this? I might have been just spreading the word of everything. Could also just be the fact that, you know, it hasn't been needed to be activated until now, but an interesting theory nonetheless. It basically is like a Dr. I think it's like a Dr. Gero bit in Dragon Ball Z, where he turns himself into Android 20 as kind of his finale creation. And beyond those two, we get into the 8 Reploids that, again, once again, are kind of turned against X and Zero. But before we do that, let's talk about Isak a little bit. So, when Isak and High Max are brought into the fold, High Max, the Arbiter Judge, essentially says that there's a problem going on in the world. It's this weird nightmare that seems to be just sweeping the planet. And we're not sure if it's because of the Zero virus coating the planet at this point. But High Max alleges that it's Zero's fault. So they dub it the Zero Nightmare, and they essentially launch a crusade against it. He now asks for volunteers to risk their lives helping High Max stop the phenomenon, which is where the 8 Mavericks we fight come from. Now, Isak is part of this, spreading the word, right? Essentially an expert being like, well, I can't believe Zero has done this. So between him and High Max, now they make a call. 8 Reploids, but essentially Mavericks in X's eyes, based on the definition from X4, answered the call. Commander Yamark, cool dragonfly design. Blizzard Wolfgang, again, we're starting to like kind of get away from being just pure animals and sometimes just, you know, take the name like this. By the way, Blizzard Wolfgang, almost like Slashman number 4. Blaze Heat Nix. Ooh, Blaze Heat Nix. That's such a cool design, but his fight is kind of okay. Metal Shark Player. Goofiest names in the entire series, but I do like him. He's a Hammerhead Shark Reploid. How can you not like him? I like all his angular designs. I like his big ol' anchor. Yes, Blaze Heat Nix. This is your Phoenix form here, Blaze. Rainy Turtloid. otherwise known as I think it's Shield Sheldon. But I kind of like Rainy Turtleoid. I think that one's fun. A Ground Scaravich. Again, he's a dung beetle. So that one's fun. I like the big old turtle design. Oh no, this one's Shield Sheldon. What am I talking about? Sorry, different Maverick. So Shield Sheldon. This was a fun design. I like how pink he is. I love it. An Infinity Miginion. Okay, like a water flea. Apparently is what a Miginion is. Otherwise, I would have no idea what this guy's going for. You'll notice a lot of duality, right? A lot of like smaller bug Reploids and a lot of big dudes like Turtloid, kind of Wolfgang. It's a good amount. Sheldon sort of more wide. So as X himself goes on to basically fight these nightmare investigators who all attack him when they shows up because they don't want him to interfere with them basically trying to stop the nightmare. He's able to, in tandem, defeat the Zero Nightmare. And at that point, he actually runs into Zero, who, as it turns out, hit himself while he repaired himself, at least according to the direct text from the game. Which is still one of the funniest things is like, oh yes, of course I hit myself while I repaired myself. Okay, well, if Dr. Light's hologram repaired X, you can only assume the Zero somehow got repaired. Maybe the Zero virus regenerated him. After all, it's clearly powerful enough, just being the Sigma virus, to be able to essentially manifest Sigma's consciousness still. So why wouldn't it try to repair Zero, essentially? With those investigators defeated, it turns out that Gate himself was the one who's been directing all of this. He saw Climax and the Zero Nightmare, and basically invites our heroes now to come storm his laboratory. This is where we get the Aelia lore. As it turns out, Aelia used to work with... Oh, shout out to Shadow Armor, by the way. This armor is sick. Aelia used to work with Gate as essentially another scientist. So this is where you get a lot of her in-depth backstory, more or less. I also love the profile shots of all these guys. Just so good. Kind of scrolling through here. Let's see if we can't run into Gate. There's Gate. And here is his ultimate form, the Golden Gate. Or I guess, I don't know what it's referred to. I think it's just like Perfect Gate, essentially. So, again... Anyway, I used to work with Gate. You get some flashback scenes of them doing this stuff. They actually figure out that Aelia killed Blizzard Wolfgang, among other crimes. So yeah, our cute pink operator killed this dude. Dead. It happens, you know, for science, right? Science has never done anything bad. Well, as we get down here, go look at Golden Gate. Annoying boss, by the way. Holy moly, you basically have to fight him with his own weapons. Bounce things back at him. And I say the soundtrack is so good. I think I don't know what I'd say my favorite soundtrack is. Might be X8 still. Just so good. And we'll get to that one. So once they've defeated Gate, he unleashes his trump card. You'll never believe what it is. So, we defeat Hymax. Well, not really defeat Isak, but as it turns out, Gate's been working on a little something. It's Sigma! Again! Now, he was kind of dispatched in X5, but again, his essence still continues to exist. So, he's back, but as what folks know as Zombie Sigma, as he's been incompletely resurrected. Now, unfortunately, Axel Zero still have to defeat him, and then he has this phase 2 where he essentially becomes this kind of bigger entity and still tries to just blast him and kill him with his desperate will. And again, this is where you lose a lot of the sanity. Like, Sigma is gone by this point. It is simply his will and his desire to destroy X and destroy the planet. It's just becoming more and more primal with each passing game. So, like I said, X6 Sigma, oh my goodness, he's just off the rails at this point. And ultimately, they're able to defeat him. And they exit the lab, bringing Gates' body to show Alien that, okay, oh, he's gone. The Maverick Hunters agreed to rebuild the Earth better than before. So now that we've defeated Sigma 8 times, surely the world can be better. And mechanically, this is the last game that follows the trend started by X1, which is, it's kind of that 2D, it's pixel style, it's got some good looking models in there. Now we are going to see what happens after X6, because again, X6 would have been a solid end for the series. Ultimately, it even ends with actually, I can't remember if it's X5 or X6 that ends with it. I think, or maybe it's X4. Let's go check the notes. 3? No, maybe it is X6. X6 in the end, exactly. Now, in theory, it could have been, right? Because Zero actually does get sealed away at the end of X6. And for those familiar with Mega Man Zero, that's how he gets there. Is that he's actually put away to be able to then be brought back in the future. At least I think that's... Yeah, I think it's at the end of X6 is when we get that scene. I'm trying to remember whether it's 5 or 6. Either way, though, that's essentially the direct reference to Mega Man Zero, which is being made. So, let's talk about everyone's favorite game to dislike. Which is Mega Man X7. The crux of why I even wanted to talk about the whole series in the first place, talk about that war, talking about all the different mechanics and whatnot, it takes us to here. Yes. X7. Now, it departs from the 2D pixel style and goes for a 3D approach. This is the season, right? You're also hearing that there's some instrumental differences now, once again, as we tried something new with X7. Backstory: many years later, the planet's recovered from the Earth crisis. Well, thank goodness. Again, space station destroying X6, all the stuff that happened with Gate and Esoc and Hymax, not so great. X murdered several folks that were just trying to investigate the nightmare. It's fine. When this happened, several years afterwards, X has stepped back from the front lines of the Hunters. So now it's Mega Man X7 without X. So it's just Mega Man 7, which is also was kind of a funny game in its own right. But he's wishing to seek peaceful solutions to Mavericks aside from combat. So as a result, since the Maverick Hunters aren't really hunting Mavericks at this point, instead, a power vacuum has appeared and is now filled by a group known as Red Alert. Red Alert starts hunting Mavericks. So imagine, essentially Batman coming in. That's what Red Alert is serving as. They're a vigilante group. They're going in and destroying Mavericks on their own account. And this certainly captures the attention of the Maverick Hunters. Red Alert is led by, very aptly, a vigilante known as Red. So, Red and his members of the group, including Axel, who will be introduced here as a main character, as you can see kind of front and center there on the poster. Axel begins to meet, or Red himself begins to meet with an individual known as the Professor. Now, it's a little worrying in this series, right? Because, there's many professors. There's, of course, the Professor in the form of Dr. Light, there's Professor in the form of Dr. Wily, there's Dr. Doppler in theory, or Dr. Kane. A lot of options. But who's the Professor? Only time will tell. So as Red continues to interact with the Professor, Axel starts to become a little uncomfortable with all the things Red Alert's doing. And he leaves the group. Red Alert decides that's not happening and sends folks to come and bring him back. That starts to cause some chaos in the city, and it attracts the attention of, well, who would you, when you know it, Zero comes in and meets up with Axel in the city. As a result, Zero's a little questioning of Axel at first, but they are able to team up and stop the pursuers. And then Zero arrests him. He goes, all right, well, okay, I got you away, but I have to take you now. So Red contacts the Maverick Hunters directly and says, give me back Axel. And essentially says, well, okay, if you're not going to give him back, I would like to declare a duel between the organizations to determine custody. So the Maverick Hunters and the organization Red Alert are now fighting over custody of Axel. So, you know, it's kind of a funny premise for it all. X does not want to engage in this, by the way. So X is unplayable at the beginning of a Mega Man X game, which might be a reason why people think this game's just a bit odd. However, Axel's very excited to jump in and do this, so your two playable characters at the beginning of X7 are Axel and Zero. So Axel essentially takes the role of your kind of run and shooty guy, and well, Zero takes the role of the close in and slash with a bunch of blades guy. Yeah, exactly. It's kind of wacky. It's kind of wacky to think that it's an X game that doesn't actually start with X. So Axel fighting custody of himself. Well, yeah, Axel doesn't want to go back to Red Alert. He wants to fight with the Maverick Hunters, and he's gonna go murk all his friends so he can go hang out with the Maverick Hunters. I like to think of him like Silver the Hedgehog in a lot of ways, where he's like, you know, he knows about Sonic, he thinks it's super cool, but it's like, all he's got to do. It's like, all right. I just noted the burn to the ground. We'll talk about Hot Flame Highnard, don't you worry. The professor from Mega Man Network transmission too. Oh, that's a good point. You right. So now with that, Axel and Zero on the case, they fight the 8 leaders of Red Alert. So let's go ahead and get to that. So we got X, pretty cool render for him. Whoa, too far. Got Zero, don't know how I feel about this one, kind of stringy looking blade in this. Got Axel, again, you know, no origins, but Axel has an interesting power. He's able to transform into other Reploids using a technology that will later be known as A-Trans. So, it's funny enough, this does come back in the later series. But he's able to transform into other Reploids. It's a new form, essentially. It's a new generation of Reploids, way past anything that Axel, or way past anything that Zero or X or even Sigma was made from. I'm A-Trans, exactly. You know what? It is what it is. We got Cygnus. Cygnus returns and it's a minor role. Amelia continues to play a very prevalent role here, namely in the form of, can you hear me, Zero? Actually, that might be X8. She certainly loves giving advice, to a lot of people's dismay. So many times in the game you go, oh my god, please, Amelia, I know what to do. Stop talking to me. Here's Red. I love Red's design. Just super cool. Again, there's a Vigilante Reploid. Oh, it's so cool. And now we get to the 8 Maverick bosses that they fight against. And again, only really Maverick, because they're not one of the Maverick Hunters. And so X/Zero Axel, I'll brand them as Mavericks because they're hunting them. So there's a little bit of nuance to it. So Flame Highnard, otherwise known as Burn to the Ground or Burn, is one of the 8. And he essentially uses a lot of like big flame blasting attacks. It splits himself into 3, which is why commonly you'll see in all the videos of fighting Flame Highnard that all of his voice lines are just so one after the other. Now, normally, of course, they would not play without the previous one being finished. However, because there's 3 of them, now each of them have their own different commands of when to use the voice lines. Why it just basically spams and runs itself over. We have Vanishing Gungaroo. They basically kickboxing kangaroo. The cool thing is you fight it in like a bigger kangaroo fighting bot as the main boss fight. Kind of like 3D, and all these stages and boss fights, by the way, are all 3D arenas. Which again, wild choice. There's some sections that are kind of split into being 2D for parts of it and 3D for parts of it. Think something a la Think like Sonic, in like some like modern Sonic game or levels where it's like some is 2D, some is 3D. Kind of a similar concept, not really executed as well in my opinion. Ride Borsky is known as You Punk and Holy Moly, which I use Holy Moly a lot. That was before I did this game though. But I just love that he rolls out Holy Moly whenever you blast him back with his weakness. But he's a biker pig. And again, these designs all are pretty good. I don't know if they're my favorites. I do like Ride Borsky a lot. I forgot about Tornado Tunyon. Just strange spinning guy, known for such quotes as around and around and I make wall, yeah? So, just spins, shoots electricity. Very interesting electrical tornado attacks. The cool thing is, I think Axel's electric tornado attack he gets from is also really sick. You basically shoot an electric tornado. Splash Waterfly is known as See Ya as he jumps back into the water. Splash Warfly, not Waterfly, jumps out of the water, attacks you with some spear attacks, then jumps back in. Reminds me a lot of the combat style of Fairy Leviathan from Mega Man Zero. Just again, a little clunkily executed. You can only shoot him when he's on land. It's an alright fight. All these are kind of alright. Snipe Anteater. He is a goofy design and mechanically he basically just goes around a cylinder and you can only kind of shoot him whenever you were on the right side of the cylinder to be able to shoot him. It's again strange. Soldier Stone Kong, one of the ones I like a lot actually. It's basically just a big old monkey with a stone sword and shield. Pretty neat. He's the defensive mod. A lot of the games will have at least one defensive weapon type person. This is it. You summon a stone shield. And Wild Crowrang, again, it's an interesting fight that he said. Just flies around, throws attacks. So all of these are members of Red Alert. Once you defeat all of them, Axel is able to reveal to Zero that he left the group because they suddenly started targeting innocent Reploids for their DNA. Axel felt at that point that his copy ability was being misused. So they're basically harvesting this DNA for Axel to be able to forcefully copy and be able to play these different roles in pursuit of their objectives. So, because when you can become anyone, well, that's when it starts sowing that dissent, that distrust, that craziness, right? As that fight goes on, well, X eventually rejoins the group. He's like, hey, you know what? I can sit by the front, or sit at the back lines no longer. Now, you can get X earlier if you get enough hostages. The hostage mechanic was introduced in, I think, X6. I want to say another mechanic I didn't necessarily care for because each of them had different items. If he didn't get them, he had to go back and do it. Be that as it may, a little annoying, but that's okay. As you get the team back together, you have X, Zero, and Axel now. You infiltrate Red's Crimson Palace and you defeat him. So he resigns himself to just perishing in a self-destruct and, well, the end of Red, right? Now, here's the big reveal, right? It turns out that the professor was Sigma the whole time. And he'd been manipulating Red Alert as that character to use Axel's DNA abilities. So Sigma's been wanting to manipulate Axel's DNA stuff the whole time. And again, it's just gone so far off the deep end at this point. So once they are able to fight him, culminating, of course, in one of the worst Mega Man X boss fights in the entire series. Giant Sigma in space who flies punches at folks, and it has the jankiest hitbox ever. And it just, oh my god, the same amount of love I have for the X4 boss fight, for the final fight, I have hatred for the X7 final fight. But here's what I will tell you about X7 and what you can love about it. One, the story's interesting. So it actually at least tries to divert a lot and goes for kind of a Repl Force approach like X4, where you have this entire organization that's just against you and you're fighting against them toe to toe. It introduces Axel and introduces some interesting mechanics. It executes on kind of the 3D arena design. I'm not saying it's perfect, but it goes okay. And ultimately, I think that the culmination of the story here at the end is really cool. Because not only do you end up fighting Sigma at the end and essentially bringing him to near defeat, but he nearly manages to turn it all around. Fortunately, let me get a good picture of Giant Sigma up here, by the way. This, of course, being Sigma's profile. Look, he's just gone. He's just gone mad at this point. Ooh, okay. We also have those different designs for Axel. Could have looked like a couple of these different ones, which is kind of interesting. So I love how they finalize his design here. Don't know how I feel about the colors here. That design's all right. I kind of dig the like just single hair, and it looks a little more like Red's design, funny enough. I don't know how I feel about that one. That one's without the hair though, and they were kind of like, okay, do we want to do Zero again? Like, what do we want to do here? Where is Sigma? Okay. Yeah, here's giant idiot Sigma. Just look at this guy. Probably when he opens his mouth, I will admit. X7, goofy as a lot of the boss designs and everything are. Axel's really not my favorite as far as the voice performance went. So, luckily, I think X8 remedies quite a bit of things that were problems in X7. Yeah, just giant idiot Sigma punches you. And here's all the enemies as well. My boys, little rider guys. What else was I looking for here? This. Oh no, that's Red's twin scythe design, which is also pretty cool. I like that Red uses the twin scythe. The coolest part about Red in X7 is that he actually comes and takes them down. So in the final scene, you're fighting Sigma, and Sigma's essentially like, you know, he's at the edge of this tower and he's about to kind of fight you off. But the cool thing is that Red actually transforms and essentially dupes Sigma and is able to utilize Axel's transforming power and then tackle him out of a window. And so unfortunately Red dies, but then so does Sigma. So very cool. We finally, after 9 iterations, we finally defeated Sigma. Sort of. So let's talk about the last game in the series, at least for now. We'll have to see if they ever do anything additional with it. But MegaMan X8, which does another huge kind of iteration in the series. In the fact that, oh, where's my MegaMan sound? Oh, by the way, all these songs I'm playing are off of Spotify. You can listen to every single soundtrack thanks to the Capcom sound team putting these all on here. So MegaMan X8, right? This one sort of introduces Sigma at the very beginning, but also sort of doesn't. Our main opponent in X8 is, well, it almost seems like Sigma at first. Let's back up a little bit and talk about where we are lore-wise. The humans at this point have started what's called the Jacob Project. They're building an orbital elevator, more or less. Now, you might notice that this is kind of a similar alliteration to Jacob's Ladder. After all, it's known as Jacob's Elevator. So there's a few different call-outs in the localization as far as, you know, different references. After all, Noah's Park is the tutorial stage. So definitely some interesting, like biblical type heavenly themes. So it's neat. I think it's kind of interesting that they utilize this as an overnaming scheme, but again, it's to iterate kind of humans versus reploids that way. The humans have built this, built the Jacob's Project, Jacob's Elevator. Now, again, the lore for X8 is sick. And hopefully you've been enjoying everything up to this point as well. I think all the games feed into themselves so dang well, and sometimes it kind of departs and then comes back, but ultimately there's always some consistencies with it. In this particular case, Sigma is kind of this ever-present evil throughout all of them, just as Dr. Wily for Classic. After all, even when we thought the enemy was Mr. X, turns out it was Dr. Wily. Even though we thought it was Cossack, turns out it was Wily. So that's all right, because it's kind of that expected, and it's all in the execution at that point. So when the humans create the Jacob elevator, they have one goal: escape the Maverick Wars. Because as we've already realized, just because the whole Earth crisis was solved doesn't mean the Mavericks aren't fighting each other still. I mean, think about it. We just fought Red Alert again. Or we just fought Red Alert in X7, and we've been fighting a bunch of Mavericks since then. So the humans are like, that is enough. We are building Jacob's elevator to get into space and get away from all the crap that's happening on Earth. So to help, I created a new generation of Reploids. They put them into production, and then each of them has a copy chip. You might think for a moment, where did that tech come from? Well, we just talked about it, right? Axel was the first of the generation, but similar to X, and the fact that all Reploids were derived from X, the new generation of Reploids was derived from Axel. With this copy ability, the A-Trans power, each of them, therefore, is able to completely control their own DNA. That also means they're completely immune to the Sigma virus. We did it. Isak and all these other scientists throughout the time, they allegedly had a cure to the Sigma virus, but unfortunately just continued getting stronger and stronger. But being able to manipulate your own DNA, if the Sigma virus begins to invade, just manipulate it. Get rid of it. Incredible, right? 100% control over a Reploid's creation. And like Johnny said, nothing bad ever happens in space. We did it. So, X now approaches the Jacob's elevator, and he witnesses an incident happen. And suddenly that new generation of workers, all these new Reploids, copy the body of a very strong individual. They all transform into effigies of Sigma. That's right, an army of Sigmas. Now, this is a bit terrifying at first, because I mean, we already been dealing with one Sigma this whole time. Now there's like 100 plus of this guy. But luckily, we are reassured by the director of the Jacob project, Lumine, comes forth to set everyone at ease. Let me pull up Lumine real quick to show you before we go back to that. Where you at, Lumine? All right, here we are. So, Lumine is introduced as, again, the leader of the Jacobs project. Again, one of these newer generations of Reploids designed to be able to make everything work. And they reassure them that, hey, there's no risk of these new ones going Maverick. After all, they can continue to just, well, transform their DNA to make themselves immune. They just look like Sigma. They aren't going to suddenly become him. So, as a result, X0 and Axel are on a mission near the Jacob's elevator, and they run into a familiar face with a few upgrades. This is Vile 5. The last time we saw him, he was Mark II. He's apparently gone through a couple iterations since then, and he is ready to fight. And he wants nothing more than to once again fight X. Now, he takes consolation prize, right? Now, as much as he'd like to fight X, he's got bigger things in play. Vile 5 kidnaps Lumine. Therefore, now the leader of the Jacobs project has been stolen away. And now, as a result, the world begins to rebel against the new generation Reploids. Now, that means that we're going to need some more staff. So luckily, we bring on 2 new navigators to assist our girl Alia. We bring on Pallet, who's kind of more of the supporty type role, analyzing a lot of combat things. We bring up Lair, who knows the most about combat and can essentially tell you like what the boss's weakness is. Guards at Smithy's Castle from Super Mario RPG. You know, kinda. Yeah, Mario Arc 5. So with these three combined, they all have different levels of advice, assistance, and will chime in every 5 seconds to make sure you know stuff. I actually love their designs. So for different reasons, I love just how they all look different, how they've all been designed differently. And I know everybody's favorite is Layer, but honestly, I have a soft spot for Palette. I think she's adorable. I also like that her hair is like, connected to those two floaty things above. And our other cast of returning characters, of course, we have Cygnus back, who's still the director, technically. He has the most advanced CPU, as it said there. Axel is back, and better than ever. He got still the twin guns and a little better voice acting. And he's joined the Maverick Hunters after defecting off of Red Alert. Zero, which I love that blade design, although I don't know why it's not his classic green. And then X. Don't know how I feel about this one, but I would agree with Blaze in the fact that I love the opener profile art for X in X8. This is the title screen profile. Ooh, so good. And so our three boys begin their fight to save the world once again. As the Maverick Hunters fight, Alia hypothesizes that these new Reploids are being influenced by Sigma's DNA and their copy chips. Not so good, right? You would think, and Lumine already went over, they shouldn't be able to do that. That it should be that they can just manipulate their DNA. But here's the problem. If the Sigma virus infects the copy mechanism that lets them manipulate their DNA, well, it's like getting past the ability to be able to change all those things. Ice, snow, Yetinger. Well, we're gonna get to that, but no. No. I don't know who came up with these names. So the Hunters now have to defeat 8 new Mavericks of this new generation, which, again, their copy chip's been infected by the Sigma virus. So let's go over them real quick. Optic Sunflower. Yeah, he's kind of a cyber type guy, a little bit like Cyber Peacock in that way, and honestly the stage is a little reminiscent of it. Gravity Antonian. No relation to Tornado Tunyon, but he's just a big old ant. You gotta wonder how he'd think about Snipe Anteater from previous games. Dark Mantis. Ooh, Dark Mantis is sick. I do like the blades on his arms, and the funny thing is the 0-1 first boss reminds me a lot of this guy. Gigavolt Mana War. Goofy dude. And that reminds me, we'll talk about stage design here in a bit. Burn Rooster. I love Burn Rooster's design. Again, another kind of fiery, fighty kind of guy. Avalanche Yeti, otherwise known as Ice Snow Yetinger in frickin' some venues. Just this big old snowy dude. Reminds me of the Yeti from Star Force 2, funny enough. And Earth Rock Trilobite. Another bug. No, it's just a bunch of rocks and crystals. And then Bamboo Pandemonium. I love how this name works, on the other hand. His other name sucks. Pandemonium, that's a great one. There's this big old panda that shoots missiles. And so after you defeat all 8 of these Mavericks, which, to talk about stage design, there's a lot of interesting things at play. For Pandemonium, for instance, you were doing mostly a mech suit navigation of this stage. I think that makes it pretty fun, to be honest. It also means like the song changes between the two, and it's like, it's pretty good overall, but I think that the meched up version is the better version, in my opinion. In fact, let me go find that. Which one is? It says Booster Force, that's right. Oh no, the non-meched up version. Just love that guitar. Ooh. But yes, after you defeat all 8 of the Mavericks here, you make your way to Jacob. And then, suddenly, you see Sigma as he's appeared. And you gotta fight him. He attempts to burn the entire room down, apparently taking a page out of Flame Heinard's book. Once you defeat him, you realize that this wasn't Sigma at all. The new generation Reploid copying him, but now to even more of a degree. it's like fighting a weaker version of Sigma, which, while it's nice it's weaker, it just means that there's could be hundreds of Sigmas to fight now. So you make it to the moon, and you destroy Vial 5, and then manage to find the real Sigma. And he claims that the new generation of Reploids are loyal to him like children. Now let me tell you something. I said X4 was peak Sigma design for a boss fight, but I gotta say, there is one small exception. Wait, what is... I don't think I've ever seen Blushy Layer. That's adorable. But one small exception to that qualifier, and that is this version of Sigma. I love and adore Knight Sigma, and his boss theme is so dang good. Give me this guy. Oh my goodness, he's just lashes out. Let's see if it's got one with him with the blade too. This, by the way, a better shot of Vial Mark 5 here. Or Vial V, I guess you could think of it as that too, because it's like basically his ultimate form. Here it is. Oh, look at this guy. Look at his design. It's just like a big old knight. He's got... The coolest part is you run into him and everything's like... it's 2.5D, more or less. Where everything is 2D, but it's 3D models. And he just sits there in the friggin' throne, just like this. As you approach him in space, essentially. It's just like... You finally made it, X. And to talk about all of his children, it's like, alright, time to fight. And he gets up, and it's just... He's now a mesh machine amalgamation. Sigma's will, despite the fact that his body has crumbled long ago, his will to fight shall never die. And I love that as a villain. Does this chair explode? I don't remember if it explodes, actually. I don't think it does, funny enough. Look at just the will, the manifestation there of Sigma. This does unfortunately bring us to the end of current version Sigma once we defeat Knight Sigma, but I will say he is definitely just such a solid villain. I think that of all the Mega Man series villains, Sigma is one of the best. Now, I say he's one of the best design-wise and one of the best just overall as a villain, but is he the most evil? No. I would say the title of most evil of all the Mega Man villains solidly goes to Dr. Wile. And if we end up discussing the Zero series, as I'm more than willing to do if people would like, we'll delve into that. Because Dr. Wile is just a terrifying entity. Oh my god. Heinous acts against humanity, against Reploids, against God himself. Wile is just the absolute epitome of just darkness and corruption and just the most evil man possible. And he is human, like human augmented. It's like Doppler. But that's the scary part, is he's just so evil. Oh my god, Dr. Wile. But I'll stop you out about that again. That'll be for the Zero series going through it. Let's talk about the real final boss of X8. For the first time in the series, not Sigma. It's Lumine. As you find out that Lumine and the new generation of Reploids merely took advantage of Sigma's leadership to advance their own supremacy. And essentially, the new generation Reploids were all just kind of tricking Sigma into thinking that he was their king still. It turns out the new generation, Lumine included, have been acting on their own free will the whole time. And then Lumine looks to them and says, "You all are now obsolete and must be destroyed." and they fight Lumine. And the cool thing about Lumine is that they have the ability to essentially A-trans and utilize the DNA of all 8 Maverick bosses that you fought within the game to do their attacks. It makes this fight so cool. And also so evil at the same time, because you have to essentially dodge sometimes combinations of the different boss attacks. Just like looking at Dark Mantis slashes and the snowflakes coming down from Yeti. It's just like there's so much going on at different points of the fight. And if you do manage to defeat Lumine Phase 1, it brings you to Phase 2, Absolute Madness. And now starting to look like a boss from a Mega Man Zero game, as Lumine enters their kind of angelic archangel type second form. Now, a couple fun things about this. One, you go into this fight with the same amount of health that you had at the end of Phase 1. So try not to get hit. The other thing about this fight, it is one of the only fights, in fact might be, I think, the only fight in the X series to feature an enrage timer. And for those that are unfamiliar with what an enrage timer is, it essentially is once you've taken long enough in the fight, the boss says, "You're dead," and ends the fight, and you lose. So you have to start back from the beginning. You essentially need to stop, flavor wise, you need to stop Lumine's ascension. If you take too long, they ascend to essentially become a mechanized god with the ability to transform their data into like this deity like form, and it's over. The game is just, the fight's done. You lose. We've had that happen on stage, funny enough, barely missing the cutoff timer. As sort of like the Wily capsule in Classic, where if you fight him for long enough, he gets away, you don't defeat him. Lumine Phase 2 is, instead of you don't defeat, you die. You get taken out by a god. And so, if you're able to defeat Lumine in time, he falls. And as he does, a tentacle lashes out of their chest and hits Axel straight in the forehead and plants a small object in his helmet. Now, what could it be, right? After all, Axel is a new generation Reploid. So, what might it do? We don't know. Because unfortunately, X8 is where the series ends. But, if we ever get an X9, I would be interested to see what they do with that little plot point. After X and Zero destroy Lumine's body after striking Axel, they return to Earth with Axel's unconscious body, and that's the end of the X series as we know it right now. Now, to give kind of an epilogue to it, sometime afterwards, after the X series, X8 or X9, whatever they'll ultimately end up doing, Zero has to come to terms a little bit with the fact that he was the origin of the Maverick virus. He was the main problem, and it ultimately was kind of his fault that everything got to this point by design. After all, Dr. Wily wanted this world, this utopia that Dr. Light was trying to create now with creating X and setting him to awaken in the future. He wanted to destroy it by any means necessary. So, cunning as he is, Dr. Wily created Zero and unleashed this problem. Dr. Wily is the reason that the X games happen. Because of the Maverick virus evolving, propagating, becoming the Zero virus, ending up resulting in a space station crashing into Earth, and all of these different wars that break out. The Maverick Wars, the Repliforce Wars, the war that gets Red Alert. Everything that happens originates from the fight versus Zero and Sigma. And Sigma being the transference of the virus to him over Zero. This ultimate machine, Dr. Kane's creation, now infested by Dr. Wily's will. Don't try to justify Zero's emo-ness. Oh, I love Zero's emo-ness. And again, Probably a personality design from Wily. Always designed to be an edgelord. The Shadow the Hedgehog to X's Sonic, right? After all, you know, when you talk about Dr. Robotnik, Dr. Eggman, and the creation of Shadow, got a design to be an antithesis in a way. So, in some ways, that's how I think of Zero, at least. So, as Zero realizes this, he goes to the researchers, the healers, the doctor that we talked about before, allows them to seal him away so his body can be studied for its unique antibodies to the virus. After all, if Zero succumbed to his own virus, that wouldn't be good. So that's why he was put in a capsule in his head, and the rest of his body was designed to resist it by Dr. Wily. So they study these unique antibodies, and they create a new entity, something that hadn't been seen before, an entity known as the Mother Elf. The Mother Elf was utilized to end the Maverick Wars, able to purge the Sigma virus once and for all. But unfortunately, it also lends itself to the Elf Wars, as with the Sigma virus gone, well, now there's a war over the Mother Elf and all of the different elves. But again, that story will be for a different series, as we will have to come back and talk about Zero at some point. Dr. Wily versus Dr. Weil. Who caused more damage? More damage? I would probably say Wily. Just over the course of, because I mean, think about it. Dr. Wily caused enough damage for 2 lifetimes, and ultimately, Wily's will is kind of what fuels Dr. Weil as well. So Wily's the origin point for everything going not so great. Yeah, I agree with Tara, which is, yeah, just from tenure, Weil would have done way more. But again, that's the difference, right? If you think about the differences, MegaMan and X, they didn't want to kill. They didn't want to have to destroy. Think about what would have happened if MegaMan would have just straight killed Wily after MegaMan 1. That's what would have happened. None of the rest of the MegaMan games would have happened. All these different evil creations of Dr. Wily. Dr. Wily wouldn't have even been able to create Zero. Could have been a utopia. But alas, not meant to be, right? MegaMan was designed not to kill. Oh, designed to defeat. Hopefully put him on the way of right, but I'm afraid some just cannot be changed. And so the will of Wily persists in pretty much all of the Mega Man games. It's actually, you know, again, the proverbial same as Dr. Robotnik to the Sonic series. Wily persists in many different forms across all of the different series, and I love that. Turns out once the Sigma virus was gone, the Reploids and the humans found a new reason to kill each other. Exactly! Kill each other over something new, right? Well, in some ways, not unlike a lot of different things. Yeah, he's more than a robot. Exactly. So, think about it. If Mega Man would have taken out Wily in any of the games, wouldn't have happened. The will of Wily would have ended. Well, hopefully there, right? X doesn't want to kill, he just wants to flex his power over the Repel Force. Well, and that's the problem, right? Think about 2 examples we gave today. Yes, some of the Mavericks were bad. There were the ones that went with Sigma and betrayed. Actually, you know what? Were the enemies in X1 even really Mavericks? X2, I mean, they started to get some corruption from the Sigma virus. Yeah, same kind of with X3. Repla Force wasn't really corrupted. I mean, they were being manipulated by Sigma, but I don't know. They had different ideals, different goals. Gotta say, with X6, you have the Nightmare Investigators. They were just trying to investigate, trying to save the dang world. It's like, what was the problem with that? In X5, they were corrupted by the Sigma virus. So, you know, it's also Sigma turned dog, you know, Sigma and the combination Zero virus, but it was the Sigma virus at that point because it had taken over the world. So realistically, X2, X5, not X7. X7, you were against Red Alert. Then Red Alert wasn't really corrupted. They again were just doing the will of, doing their will, right? They were wanting to get Axel back, so they were going to try and get him. They are all defeated, and so they're not really true Mavericks in a sense. And X8, if Lumine's word is to be believed, they had free will the whole time. So realistically, a clash of ideals. They would have probably taken down Sigma eventually themselves. So who's the judge, right? Now, Lumine tried to become a god, which again, not great, but what does that mean for us? It means that realistically, X had exactly 2 verified times to go and hunt down all these Mavericks because they were infected by the Sigma virus, which is X2 and X5. Other than that, I gotta say, Johnny's point stands. What was wrong with Repliforce, right? Again, difference of ideals, didn't want to surrender, all these other pieces. Yeah, it's too early in the week to try and be God. It's Monday. It's Mega Monday. Let's not become gods quite yet here, despite Illuminate's obsessions. Now, again, godlike power only continues to become worse as we get into Mega Man Zero. Again, we come back and talk about it. Let me tell you, Mega Man Zero has some very, very evil entities all about. I think it's very cool. I think the design of them is super nice. But ultimately, I think that what we see here, the Mega Man X series, is that there's a lot to love. We talked a lot of these different things. We talked about mechanics, different things that were enjoyable about the series, all the movement it added. Because again, Mega Man was run, jump, shoot. That's about it. No wall jumps, no dashes, no charged weapons. All these things were introduced in the X series. Made it pretty sweet. The overarching arc of the Earth essentially going from Light's ideal of a world of Reploids, robots and humans coexisting, being corrupted by Dr. Wily through haphazard means and essentially via Sigma as a vessel. In some ways, Dr. Kane created his own undoing, created humanity's own undoing. That was because Wily's will steered it in that direction. And is that very unlike the original Dr. Wily? Taking robots meant for good and turning them evil? In a lot of ways, the more things change, the more things stay the same. And so the will of Wily, it persists here. So Matt Pablo goes, be guest for the Zero series. That might be pretty interesting, actually. Tell you what, yeah, if we can get Matt involved, ooh, that'd be real interesting to talk about Zero with like a guy with some good knowledge on it. Yeah. So I will certainly consider it. Again, we got plenty of series left to cover for a while to go over all those things. And as I'm already sporting here, we got Star Force coming out soon, baby. The collection's coming. And let me tell you, if you want a great handheld story between 3 different games, Star Force. Geostellar, my boy, there is a lot to love about Star Force as well. Story is so good. Dr. Wild, Dr. Wagner, on a wild combo attack, 2 Sonic Robot Master Dog. Yo. That's like, well, that's the thing. I'm gonna be honest with y'all. 2 of my favorite villains, video game villains of all time, is Eggman and Wily. Love them. I mean, they're both like robot guys, so it makes sense, right? It's like, those are the kind of things I got. For example, I just framed some prints from my office. Here's my boy, Metal Sonic. Ooh, baby. Look at that guy. Get the glare of the screen off of there. Here, let me put this onto like something neutral. There we go. This is gray enough. Look at my boy. Metal Sonic. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So, this one's pretty good. I've got another one that I picked up. This one actually from Mag proper. I can't remember if I got the Metal Sonic one. I think I did. Maybe. My boy right there. It's Zero. Of course, his Mega Man Zero design. So I love that it's got the shininess to it. So yeah. So, yep, these two are going up in my office. So, my robot boys. The two of my absolute favorites from their respective series. Oh. Of course, I got a sound from back here, but I'll probably end up putting it somewhere to decor the place. But yeah, those. Oh, they're so good. Yeah, the floor art was good. That's honestly why I ended up doing it and buying it. Hex was there with me. I was like, man, I really want that. Like, oh dang it. What are we on? Oh. Interesting. All right, comes up with for our zero. Oh yeah, we don't have a zero art. I forgot about that. And I'll tell you, if y'all haven't been checking it out already, there's a lot of great progress being made on all things 20X Expo. I'm very excited and very happy to be had on for Mega Monday. So I appreciate y'all sitting here and enjoying us talking all about different lore pieces of MegaMan. So that's pretty much all I got. So I suppose that we will have to wait until next time to talk about a different series. So if you haven't joined the Discord yet, I highly recommend joining it over there at come on, Nightbot. There we go. Joining that link that you're seeing right there. And if you haven't followed yet, I highly recommend that as well. We got Mega Monday every Monday, and we've got some great stuff coming up in the not too distant future. After all, we not only are gonna have Mega Monday, but we got Mega May coming up. And that's gonna be a blast, and you're gonna want to be here for it. So I'll probably be around there. I will. Oh, am I streaming right now? Well. Why not go over, right? So I mean, I think one of y'all probably needs to initiate it. But oh, how wonderful! All I'm saying is that, again, like the title says, a lot to love about the X series, even X7. But if you haven't played them yet, I highly recommend it. I would definitely want to see more Mega Man X if possible.
Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. The show. Let's go. From civil rights marches with Martin Luther to living in the sky. Welcome to the future. East Coast, come on. West Coast, come on. Y'all know what it is way before we do the drum on. Yeah, Mega Ran returning the